What is going on, everybody? What is up, everybody? This is Lawrence Henderson. I'm back. You see it. Yup. It is a hot takes moment where we're always seeking to be humble, open, and transparent. And I have with y'all, the real Coach K is in the house. The real Coach K is in the house. I say again, what is going on, Coach Kelvin?
What's going on, Coach Lawrence? How you feel?
Hey man, everything is copacetic. Living the dream as always. And for those out there, yes, I really am living the dream every single day. And so y'all know how this goes, right? This year, we're all about interviewing coaches, practitioners in the organizational development space, leadership space, people who have put on their coverall, steel-toe boots, and leaning into coaching. And in particular, what I wanted to start bringing on is guests who are new to the coaching profession, but really leaning into it in meaningful ways. And so I'm glad Coach Kelvin said yes to the opportunity for me to interview him. But before we get into any of the questions that I have for him, Coach Kelvin, tell people a little bit about yourself, where you are, and answer the question for me, why coaching, why now? So who you are, where you are, and why coaching, why now?
Who I am, I'm Kelvin Jenkins, as you've already mentioned. I'm in the Bay Area. I've been born and raised here. Spent all my summers, though, in the Midwest, so I'm kind of well-versed throughout the nation. Right now, I'm working at a small company called Kaiser. I've been there for a little while. I'm leaning into the coaching space because I feel like it allows me to tap more into who I am as a person versus who I am as a product for a company. And I think that's the transition I'm trying to make with my life right now, is detach from just work and really be able to lean into who I feel most empowered to be. So that's where I'm at right now.
I like it.
Married, got a dog, no kids, got a lot of family. And I like going off-road and adventure and scuba diving, all that kind of stuff. So
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we for the first time we were in Jamaica a couple of weeks ago, and we snorkeled for the first time. And for anybody who did any snorkeling or anything like that, I didn't like it covering my nose and then you telling me to breathe only through my mouth. And so I panicked a couple times. I panicked and as my wife laughed at me. But I tell you what, that was an experience. I would do it again. Once I figured out the breathing part, I would definitely do it again.
You sound like me and my wife switch roles. I'm the guy who likes to go and she struggles, but she's willing to do it again though.
Yeah,
so
there it is.
We'll give it another shot.
Man, I tell you what, man, that is definitely experience. And on that, man, how did you get introduced to coaching kind of as a career and as something that you wanted to lean into?
As a career, it's different, right? So as a career, I got introduced because someone sent me a link and said, hey, check this out. I think that this is a good fit for you. Try it. And I was like, I'm not trying this. And that person was my mom, by the way. She's one of those big wigs somewhere at another small company in San Francisco. And she was like, no, just go for it. I have always enjoyed what I felt when I've gone to like things called Life Skills 411 when I was younger. There's another company I work for called MEP Enterprises that I got coached by the CEO, got coached by the COO, and I didn't realize what those benefits were until after I got into like the workforce, started doing things. And I'm like, whatever they were doing, I want to do that type of thing for other people. And they have like this coaching session that they'll do every week. And I'm like, man, that's cool. But I had no concept of how I could do it or how I could get into it. So coaching for everyone was really my door to get more like, okay, here's the actual, you can be certified. There's an actual certification for this. And I was a little cringy when people would post things online and be like, I'm a life coach. And I'd be like, what does that mean? And who said you can coach my life? And, you have all those types of questions like, what are your credentials? Who are you? Like, why should I got a lot of cousins that have a lot of information and want to tell me what to do all the time. So who are you? And so coaching for everyone really gave me kind of the springboard to see that, no, there's an actual method to this. There's actual studies behind it. Here's how you can do it, but you can still bring who you are and be authentic and show up for people. So I was like, once I got in on the first cohort, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think that this is something that really intrigues me and it brings me alive. So here I am.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man, because you hit on some of those stigmas, right, and some of those things out there, and again, the the market, I read something the other day talking about, the market is not saturated, um, particularly if it doesn't have you. And so you stepping into saying, okay, this is something I wanted to lean into, but there's something in particular that I love, as we were talking before, and when you think about why you chose coaching, is understanding that you have found yourself sometimes in places where you felt stuck, and you now as coach helping others to be able to have a space where they could get support in figuring out their next step. And so can you explain to people, like, again, how you show up to a space as a coach?
Oh yeah, I mean, showing up really, you're really there to listen and really be interested in what someone else has to say. Like at the end of the day, I think if you can start there, you can have all types of credentials, things behind your name. But if you're willing to listen to someone and allow them the opportunity and the space to speak, they'll typically solve for themselves over time. So if someone throws something out, like there was a moment, a gentleman and I, we had a conversation about a month or so ago, and he was looking to go into coaching, right? So he's like, I want to do it, but it's expensive. I don't want to charge people. I'm here, I'm there. And I was like, okay, well, and again, I'm listening, and he's really passionate about it. He's excited. He's powered up. He's like, I want to do this. I want to do this. But, and it's the but that I'm like, oh, well, why? And now I'm curious, like, well, but what? Like, you said you want to do it. You came alive. Like, and so as a coach, if you can give someone that space where you're feeding into what they're doing and where they want to go, and I'm not telling you what to do, right? I'm really just trying to figure out what is it that you're really saying? And do you see it for yourself? Because this is how I see it. But you tell me what you see. And so he's like, well, I can't charge that. I got a lot of friends, and we're talking, millennials in our 30s, 25 to 30 kind of range. And so we shop, we spend money. That's kind of what we do. We go on excursions and adventures. I don't do avocado toast, but that's beside the point anyway. But I asked him, I was like, so, are you worth a pair of Jordans? And I just let it sit. And he's like, oh man, come on. Why you gotta? And I was like, are you worth that? He's like, yeah, I'm worth that. I was like, so that's $200 right there, 220, 250 plus tax. Are you worth that? And that's one of those light bulb moments where, as a coach, you're just giving somebody space and putting things in perspective, almost like, hey, look at this, check this out. So that's what I enjoy about this. And it doesn't always come in a session, it doesn't always come quick. Sometimes it's just a lot of listening, a lot of allowing people to pour out, and then they'll eventually hit rock bed where you can actually start building the foundation from.
I like that part, right? And again, I love how coaching can help set the groundwork for perspective and context. And again, not doing it in a sleazy way of, you didn't lead him anywhere, but just asking curious questions, right? Questions that, again, we have access to. And I love how in coaching there can be, you could create space for consciousness, right? Conscious awareness. And when you think about yourself, and again, you caught out the generations, that in our tendencies already. How how important for you is it to show up authentically?
I had a I had a basketball coach one time, um, because that's a good question. Like, who are you really, right? And who are you showing up for as people? And he would always be like, your character isn't determined when you're having a good time or when things are going your way. He's like, the character and conduct of a man is determined when he's facing adversity. And so that stuck with me. And then he would always drop little things, like basketball coaches, right? That's what they do. Sports coaches, they drop stuff. And he'd be like, I don't care about what you say. If you give me your word, you need to show up and do it. And so that stuck with me from middle school, high school, now. So when I show up, when I'm talking to somebody, I don't like fake people. So I don't want you to show up for me fake, and I don't want to show up to you fake. So I don't want you to say, "Oh man, that's a good guy," and then when I walk away, you don't feel that authentically. I don't like leaving people with a bad feeling or a bad taste in their mouth on who I am. So if you didn't like it, it wasn't because I was trying to put on a front for you. It was because I was being very honest with you and I was being myself. And I just don't think there's another way to live if you're not showing up, because that's too much, right? I got to now deal with the stuff I'm putting on as a fake. I got to remember that. Then I got to deal with the stuff that I really am. I got to remember to hide that. It too much. Like the simplest way of living is just being who you are and working on the stuff that you already have to work on. So that's kind of where I'm at in life.
Yeah, man, Coach. Um, I'm gonna challenge you, man, because
Do
I
it.
believe you worked. There's some work behind that level of clarity around self and giving yourself permission to be, which I think that's some of the things that we're engaging in our world today. And while there's so much conflict, particularly in workplaces today, right? I think it's kind of the catalyst and the precipice of the great resignation. And why there are so many articles out there about it is this connection or disconnection that people have to their ability to be in these organizations. And so when you're working with people, like I really believe there is a population of people, there are millions of people out there who are needing to connect to coaches and people who are saying, like, help me even know what that means to be me full time. And so,
Yeah.
like, what's your message to those folks, right? Because again, that's work. I know you put in work. That's a value system that you just got finished describing. How do you
Mhm.
get people to wrap their minds around it's okay to be?
Well, I think first we have to figure out who you are and what makes you feel comfortable, right? So I can't tell you to be something or be yourself if you don't even know what it's like just to be comfortable living on a day-to-day basis. So you have to know, I think, that there are certain things that you're working on, and it all begins with your mindset. So let's start there. Again, I mentioned this program called Life Skills 411, and that I did that back in 2005, I think. So I'm not going to tell my age because people be like, oh, you this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going there today. I'm gonna talk to you online when we one on one, and you can find out everything you want to know about me. But during that program, the first thing that we addressed was the mind and where you're at in personal awareness. So you have to personally be aware of your own situation. What are your triggers? What makes you happy? What makes you upset? And be honest with yourself. And you don't have to share that with anybody else, but that's the starting point. Because if you can't be honest with, okay, these things bring me joy. I'm not really sure about this. This is really frustrating. Here's my background. If you can't collaborate with those ideas of who you are inside your own mind and your own space, then we can't go anywhere else because you'll always be struggling, trying to figure out, like, well, no, this is who I am. Well, let's just sit down for a minute. How about you write some things out? Like, if you were to describe yourself, what would you say the world looks at you and sees? That's one thing. All right, now that you have that, what would you say you want to see in yourself? Okay, you got that. All right, and now, here you are at your retirement party. You're about to, you're a great grandparent now, whatever you want to say. You're closer now to finality of life versus the beginning of life. What do you want people to have said about you or thought about you? What do you want that to look like? And let people sit with that for a second. So there are some things that I hold dear to me that I'm working towards becoming, while knowing that there's some stuff that's already in me that I'm dealing with, working through, navigating. So my end goal is always in sight. So, but if you don't know where you are, you can't get to where you want to be. I know it's one of them Sister Act sayings, but it's real.
I love. Hey, I'm a sucker for pulling in movie quotes any opportunity y'all can. So hey, keep them coming, keep them
I
coming.
want to be somebody.
Right?
Better
Hey,
wake up.
yeah, and pay attention, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you just described there is coaches create that space to help others free themselves up to pay attention because again I believe some of the things and as I encounter leaders in these spaces and you've probably as well in your professional career we've had access to so many bits of information and so many modalities and so many skill sets that we don't kind of reverse engineer them and really break them down. And I love your self-awareness part of really digging into that becoming a personal exercise. And to me, that's hard to do if I don't like your face. And so in coaching, there's this part about called rapport, and one of our listeners right now, Phil, he asked, again, finding rapport and building rapport with others is essential. And so for us, how does rapport building, how does that as a vital tool work in coaching?
Oh man, I mean, rapport is almost like relatability to me. That's kind of how I look at it, like finding common ground between me and someone else that I'm talking to. And that brings in a level of comfort. If I haven't built up a rapport with you, there's no way I'm going to be able to get into listening to anything intimate that you're going to want to share with me. You're not going to be fully honest. You're not going to be fully authentic or yourself, because you're like, well, can I tell you this? Should I tell you? An example of that was when we were coaching. So we went through an intensive, you and I. You were one of our mentor coaches for it, and you were facilitating this exercise. And I got put in the hot seat, and I was like, nope. And it was like we had seen each other maybe twice, and you're starting to ask deep questions, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna give you this piece. And then we had 20 other people watching virtually, so it was like, I have maybe a rapport with you, but the other folks, maybe I have a better rapport with them, but ours isn't quite there yet for me to expose who I am. So to build rapport, I think it starts off just being, I know this sounds very generic and cliche, but just being human. Like, hey, I might not like your face, but I know that you're a person, you're dealing with stuff. Like, you came and you decided to engage in this conversation. Let me meet you there. Or maybe you were forced to by your manager. And that sometimes happens. I had a gentleman one time who was an older gentleman. We were working together. I was his leader on a team, and I built rapport with him by creating trust and setting expectations. I was like, hey, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to do this, but what is it that you would like to use this time for? We have to be here. So what would you like to do with it? And I just listened. And it didn't mean we didn't get nowhere that I wanted to get to for and like I said, we were working together for a couple months, but he ended up being my number one like go-to for a lot of stuff later on down the line, just because I was willing to listen and get small wins. So
Love that. I love that. Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up that example, right? Because again, as we were going through this training scenario, it was real for you. And
yeah,
again, and even from an authenticity perspective, because you already described how you normally and naturally desire to show up, you couldn't not give a real topic. Like you couldn't give a play topic. Like you leaned into a topic, but there's something to be said around just that rapport building. And that's why for coaching and for me, that initial get to know session is so vital for me as a coach. Because here's the deal. I am not gonna say I'm everybody's coach. It's to me, coaching is a dance, coaching is a relationship. And if
exactly.
the thing that you're talking about and that you want to desire, that you're working on, if that doesn't resonate with me as a coach, guess what? I get to say yes to you and you get to say yes to me. And I said, and I also get to say no to you as much as you get to say no to me. And here's the deal. I think coaching and coaches who remove their ego from believing that they can coach anybody, like, and saying, hey, you know what? I don't believe I'm your coach in this season of life, but let me connect you with Coach Kelvin because I know Coach Kelvin is he has what I believe you need in this season. So let me make that connection with a smile on my face. And that's like my buddy Coach Phil, who's out there, and of course, Coach Todd, that's out there listening right now. Is us having that breadth and depth of a network. That way, we don't feel like the thirsty coach that needs to say yes to everybody. Like you just not made, hey, what you got some deep stuff that you're dealing with. But you know what? I'm gonna connect you to a coach that has a counseling background too, just in case you need access to a therapist quicker than I can get you to somebody. And understand that coaching and therapy are not the same thing, folks. I'm not
Exactly.
saying that. Please understand those are two separate definitions and two different modalities and all the rest of those things. So be clear about that. But
One thing you just said though,
yeah, go ahead.
like even in that example, that's what a good coach is.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when you're playing sports, when you get to higher levels of sports, there are different coaches for each segment of the game. So you may have a special teams coach, defensive line coach, O-line coach. Like you're gonna have different coaches that specialize. And if you're playing certain positions, I'm not your coach. Like now there's a head coach that you need to listen to. That's a different topic altogether. But I know as a coach, like, oh man, I see your potential in this. I'm gonna connect you with so and so that we can bring that out. Like that's what good coaches do. Good coaches aren't selfish. So just thinking about that.
Yeah, no, and I got Coach Trish out here. She's talking, yeah, a strong network is key. You better
Yeah.
believe it. And so that also speaks to something that, and I love that you brought up that modeling session that we did inside of you all's training intensive, because Coach Phil is out there. He's asking again the power of presence, being present as a coach inside of a session, which I believe I did pretty good at.
Yeah, yeah,
Understanding
yeah.
it was there. But when you think about how you show up and how do you stay present inside of a coaching session?
I mean, you signed up as a coach to do that. I mean, that's like the bare minimum expectation to me is that you said that we were going to meet at X, Y, and Z time. I'm supposed to be there and I'm supposed to be not just physically on the screen, groggy, but you trusted me enough to give me time and you can't get time back. So you trusted me with one of your most precious resources is your life, basically, because time, once it's gone, it's gone. I should meet you and be there in that moment. And I should be focused in on you. Now, does life happen? Things come up? Yes, but I should be able to communicate that as well so that you know where I'm at in the moment when we're talking. So I think that's prerequisite. Like if I can't show up, then I probably shouldn't connect. Like that's just how I look at it.
Yeah, man, you say you don't you supposed to be hitting people square between the eyes, Coach Kelvin. They talk about that's the bare minimum. That's a bare minimum requirement. And here's a funny part, and again, humble, open, and transparent moments. And I love that you made that call out about life happening.
Yeah.
And even as coaches, I always tell people I'm gonna drink my Kool-Aid first before I ask any client to drink from the cup of awareness and authenticity. And again, with life happening on the Henderson side, there was those moments where I was trying to show up, and I use the word try, like, and you all, even with you all as an instructor, I was working through stuff like real time. And for us as coaches, like that level of authenticity and transparency with the client to let them know, like, hey, I know I'm off. And it was one session I never forget, just what you described, that awareness and that honesty with the client, where I had a moment like inside of their session, and I had to pause. Like I had to take a tactical pause, like as coach, like, hey, I need a break. I need a minute. And I came back, and their response was thank you. And me taking that tactical pause was, it gave them further permission, and it also built rapport. They was like, oh, this dude not faking this. Like he not new to, he true to this. And for us as coaches, like that client, like I've gotten a referral since then from that client, because they was like, now this dude not gonna play with you. Like he going through his stuff and he's gonna work through his stuff too. Because I believe coaches have coaches. And so for me, it was something I continue to have to work through with my coach, and I continue to work through, and also reaching out to the VA to get some counseling and some therapy work, because it's stuff that I'm still processing. And kind of as you think about kind of your founding kind of things that you want to give to the world. Who are your clients? And I'm gonna stack this one on you. Who are your clients, and why should they reach out to you?
No stacking questions. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
um, I keep saying that I wanna reach out and I want to connect to my generation of millennials. I keep saying that, and I really believe it's true because we're living in a generation where we're looked at in such a negative way sometimes, like, oh, you all are this, you all are that. We've gone through a recession. We're coming up. I don't know what you want to call what's coming up, but craziness, you can call it that. And we are taking the brunt of a lot of that. And a lot of the times there are folks who, especially from my area where I'm growing up, like I said, I've been in the Bay Area my whole life. So there's a lot of people who I know have a lot of potential, but just don't see it. And I would love to connect with them because it's like, man, we can do this. Like, you can do it, I can do it. We can make it out of whatever situation. So I would love for them to connect with me on that level. And I've worked in leadership roles with older folks who have said, and it's always weird, right? Because you don't want to brag on yourself, but I guess you're asking me kind of too. But I haven't had, I've had maybe one employee or one team member that we didn't mesh well with. The rest of them have all been like, you're the greatest boss I've had. And that's weird for me because I'm like, well, all I did was listen to you, right? I coached up even when I was inside of the working environment before I knew what it was. So, if you're reaching out to me, if you're trying to connect with me, it's because I'm going to challenge you in a thoughtful way to say, hey, you're saying this, but I really see that you're also mentioning this. Can we talk about it? How does that look for you? Where do you want to go? Like those types of questions, and seeing the potential inside of what you're saying to make it a reality. And sometimes we don't connect those dots. And I would love for people to be able to connect those dots and get out of their own way.
I love that, man. Way to connect those dots, Coach. And so, speaking of connecting dots, how can folks find you? How can they connect with you so they can potentially at least book an exploratory call?
Yeah, so no, the best email. So after all this coaching and everything through the intensive, I started a business. You can find me at Kelvin, Kelvin, at sameoldnew.com. That's my email address, or you can go to sameoldnew.com and you can find me there. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Kelvanimo. It's a working title. Don't worry about that right now. It's a working title. My little sister used to call me that, so it's kind of stuck, and I like it. So don't laugh, or you can laugh. Just don't make me feel bad, please. But those are the main ways, and the best, like I said, is LinkedIn and my email because I'll respond to those immediately. So yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well, hey, I definitely, again, I'm always appreciative getting the opportunity to talk with leaders like yourself across these platforms. And of course, hopefully, those who have been listening today and those who will hashtag replay it will hear some words that resonate with them, that spur them reaching out to you to connect in a meaningful way and look for their coach for whatever season of life they're finding themselves in. So as always, man, I'm super appreciative, and thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And those that already follow your channel and know you, they know that you're showing up real every time. So it was a pleasure meeting you, and it's a pleasure working with you. Pleasure having you as my mentor. So
Yes,
thankful.
sir. Hey, until next time, folks, be well, be kind, and be humble, open, and transparent every opportunity you get. We'll see you next time.